Hey folks, welcome to Backwoods Logic number 7. Now my series on alternative lighting got some really good reviews, so I'm going to start a new series here on alternative cooking methods, and I'm going to kick this off with building a rocket stove. Now I've seen quite a few different rocket stove designs on the internet. I've seen them made out of coffee cans, masonry, welded steel pipe, refurbished propane tanks, you name it. Some really innovative ideas out there. Unfortunately, most of them are rather complicated and might be a bit intimidating for someone who doesn't have the skill level for working with power tools and things like that. So I put my thinking cap on, and I'm pretty certain that I've got an idea here that is going to be really easy to make and enable you to boil water and cook with nothing more than small sticks that you can gather from the forest floor. So I'll show you what I've got going on here, and let's get started. Now I'm going to start off with this 12 quart stainless steel stock pot that I bought at Walmart in a 4-inch T like this here. Now I would prefer if this pipe wasn't galvanized, but galvanized is all that I could find. Now I would not recommend using a galvanized pipe in a high heat situation inside a closed-in area, but for this here, I'm pretty certain I'll be just fine. Now for starters, I'm going to take this crimped end and I'm going to cut it right up to that collar. I'm making several cuts, spacing them apart, maybe 3/4 of an inch or something like that. And once I have it down like that, then I'm going to just bend all of these in. Going to look like that. Then I'm going to stick this right inside this pot, and with a Sharpie I'm going to mark the top of the pipe. Now I'm just going to measure down to my mark and then transfer the mark to the outside of the pot. Put the top of the pipe right on that mark and trace it out. Had a little boo-boo there with my marking. Next I'm going to drill a hole, a 1/4-inch hole or something like that, inside the circle. You don't want to be outside the circle. Do it inside the circle. I'm going to put 2 holes side by side. Now I'm taking a pair of tin snips. I'm going to get in here. Start cutting this hole out. Now when cutting a radius, you want to get a pair of tin snips that have the curved jaw. They're color coded. The red ones will cut to the left, which is handy being right-handed. It's almost impossible for me to cut to the right being right-handed. So I'm going to start my hole on the right side and I'm going to cut the radius going counterclockwise. So if you're left-handed, chances are you want the ones that will cut in the clockwise position. The yellow-handled ones with the straight jaw will be difficult to cut the radius. You want to make sure you're wearing gloves and safety glasses. The stainless steel will cut quite a bit different than your common sheet metal, so you want to make sure you've got some glasses on. Now you see how easy that radius cut with the proper snips? You won't have that success with the straight jaw. Now next I'm going to take a file, and I'm just going to file around the edges to make sure there's no sharp burrs on there. Well, the T-pipe fit in there just nicely, so the next step I'm going to go ahead and remove this handle from the cover. I'm going to have to take a punch and make a little divot in the center of these rivets and then drill it out. I'm going to use a drill that's the same size as this rivet or maybe even a little bit larger. All right. Eyeball that pipe right in the center of that radius there. That looks about it. I'll add a couple of holes right here inside the circle and cut this out with the snips just like I did the side of the pot. There. That is looking just dandy right there. Okay, my next step now, I'm going to pack sand in all around this T-pipe. I'm going to pack it in there good and tight, but I want to make sure that it stays right in the center so my cover fits good. So what I'm going to do, since there is a hole in the bottom here, I got this into position and I took my Sharpie and I went down and I marked that circle on the bottom of the pot. That way when I'm packing sand around here, I can eyeball and make sure this stays in the right spot. Because if it migrates too much, it's going to be off center for the hole in the cover. And I don't want that to happen. So I want to keep everything right where it belongs. And now that I've got a mark straight through that hole in the bottom of the pot, I can eyeball it and keep everything right where I want it. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling it with sand. Hold it in place with one hand. Put some sand around it. I'm keeping pressure on it with my left hand as I pack the sand around it. Okay, I've got my sand packed in right to the top of the pipe. I also packed in about 1.5 inches of sand in the bottom of the pipe because this is the firebox and I don't want my pot to burn out. Now, when it's time to cook with it, you can't just set your pot right on top of there because you will stop the flow of the air. Your fire is not going to burn very well because all the exhaust is going to want to come out of the same hole that you're sucking oxygen. You need that to draw. So we have to come up with a way to keep the pot up off of here to allow the flames and the smoke to come out. Now to keep the pot up off of the pipe here, if you can find some of these, I got this one out of an old camper. You can find them at the dump. You may even be able to buy brand new ones, I'm not sure. But these are actually easy to find if you go to the dump and you look around old appliances. But since most people don't have one of these, I'm going to go ahead and use some U-bolts. I'm going to insert 3 of them in the cover before I fasten the cover down, and that will hold the pot up off of the top of the pipe. So far the project is coming along really good. I had an idea of how I wanted to make it and just kind of plunged into it. Coming along great. Now I think this is going to work out just fine. This would be the best route to go for certain, but if you can't find one, I think this is a good alternative. So I'm just going to place this and sink it down into the dirt. And that is awesome. That is just awesome right there, man. Now that is just fabulous. I like it. It even looks good. It's a nice looking little stove. Got handles. Got a little heft to it because it's full of sand. And like I said, I might experiment later on with a different material. But hey, that's a solid little stove right there. Probably lasts a lifetime. All right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and fasten the cover on. I don't think it's really necessary to do so, but I'm going to transport this occasionally, and I wouldn't want it to roll around in the Jeep and have me lose all my sand out of it. So I was trying to figure out a way to do it because the cover overhangs the pot a little bit. But I got some of these things here. These little clamps, they're to hold a small cable like a phone cable. They're made out of really lightweight material, and I opened it up with my fingers like that because they're not very strong. And I'm going to mount them to the pot with these self-tapping
sheet metal screws. And I'm just going to put one right here, right over the pot, and then equally space them, one here and one there. That way, if my sand ever settles, or I get a better idea and I want to take some of that material out of there, I can just remove the screws, take the cover off, and do so. So I'm going to go ahead and mount those. Well, I can tell you, the hardest part of this whole project so far was trying to sink in those self-tapping screws into the stainless steel. It does not work the same as it does with sheet metal or a stovepipe, I can tell you that. So I think on the next one that I build, I'll come up with something a little bit different. Maybe I will mount these clips to the cover with a small nut and bolt, and then just crimp it, because the pot itself has a lip, and just crimp it and have it as a clip rather than do it this way. But aside from that, everything went slick. So I'm going to take this out in the driveway, get a fire going in it, and give it its maiden voyage. So here we go. Now that's the beauty of the rocket stove. It allows you a simple method of cooking, and the fuel needed can be found just about anywhere.
And we're lit.
That's burning really nice. I think I would have been better here to use that little round device that I salvaged from the old camper. That would have brought the pot down lower, but the water's definitely getting hot already, so everything's looking good so far. Somebody just wants to play. I've got my knee on his toy. He's watching me. He wants to play. It's all about the fun when you're Frankie. Well, folks, it's about 32 degrees today and very, very windy, which the audio will probably pick up. Certainly not ideal conditions for this, but nonetheless, the pot is boiling, and it took maybe 25 minutes or so to get to that point. I would think in ideal conditions, it'd probably cut that time in half. I think the only thing I would do differently is, instead of using these U-bolts, I'd use that little thing that I had salvaged from the oven in the camper. That would be the way to go, because I feel there's a little bit too much distance between this and the pot. That could be fixed by just adding a little piece of stovepipe right here, and I would add a little bit of pipe here to hold the wood. As you can tell, it's really windy and it's far from ideal conditions, but nonetheless, it's been a mission accomplished. Well, I can just hear that pot boiling. That is just a rolling boil. Huh? That's fabulous. The water is boiling, and I can touch this. I wouldn't want to leave my hand there, but nonetheless, I think it's a pretty cool device. Well, I got to say the project was a success. I was boiling water in about 25 minutes, even with the conditions the way that they are. It was a lot of fun to put together, rather effortless, very little money invested. I think it would be a fun project to do with your kids, and a handy item to have for emergency situations. So I'm going to make a larger model with a 6-inch T, and I'll give a little update when I do. So I guess that's it for now. I hope you enjoy this series, and all the best to you, and God bless.